So we're gonna have mock interview with Jeremiah Jones. He's the IT QA manager at Carrington Holding Company, and he volunteered today to be as a candidate and to go through the interview, mock interview, and to show how to go and conduct the interview as a candidate. And we have Kristina Shaik. She's a VP of Test Engineering at iHeartMedia, former engineering manager at Merrill Lynch. And we have Niranjani Manoharan, engineering manager at Hippo Insurance and former manager at Lyft. All right, Jeremiah, please tell us about yourself.
So I have 20 plus years in quality assurance. I've been managing for about half that time. I really find that the work in QA is additive. So much of what we do is making a product better and driving quality through either engineering frameworks or testing to specs that speak to an overall deliverable. I think that quality is one of the easily forgotten or added late kind of things to products and projects, even though it can be designed early and brought in early and really drive the value much greater than what is originally thought of. And I think that the work that I started doing when I started QA, I really didn't know I wanted to be on that path until about 5 or 6 years in, and knew that this is something that I could continue to do and continue to build a career off of by just being able to help other people make good products, great products.
Jeremiah, could you dig a little more into one of the challenging projects that you worked on? What was challenging and how you overcame those challenges?
Sure. Recently, we were working on a project that was platform based, and so we had lots of other lots of other organizations that were impacted by the changes that we were implementing. So standardizing across a big platform and how to get everybody to understand that an API change over here could be a breaking change for the overall interface. And so and we would constantly have these bugs come up. We were able to resolve them very quickly, but ultimately it wasn't until we formed a scrum of scrums where we took the leaders out of each of those other organizations and had a separate stand up with them to really talk about, okay, the changes you're doing this week are going to have an impact that we want to prevent anything from happening. And so increasing that communication bandwidth really helped us be able to solve those issues and prevented a lot of things from going to production that otherwise would have, because of the nature of the platform and having several development groups impacting that area, different areas, unbeknownst to each other. It's a very common problem now with the way our applications on the phones and their applications on the web, and how we have different development groups working on that. But one change over here can certainly break something over there. And so just having that visibility of communication and the scrum of scrums was really helpful.
I see. Very cool. Just a quick question there around the ratio of QA to development team. How big was the team and how many QAs did you have?
So at that time, I had probably about 12 QAs. Some of them, there were like two on one team or one on one team. Each QA was generally supporting anywhere from 5 to 8 developers. We also had a separate team of QAs that were just focused on solving quality problems. So that were just focused on delivery, frameworks, making sure we had code coverage. But then each team still had individual QAs that were contributing to the building out the test cases needed for their individual units. And so the QA teams would all attend their individual stand-ups, and then once a week we would have a QA meeting and kind of have a bit of a get to know you part of it, but also, what projects are you working on that other teams on the QA team were interested in. And that's also where we got feedback from the tools team that was just focused on tooling for QA.
Got it. That's awesome. Thank you.
So I know you briefly mentioned in your introduction what sort of how you got into QA field. Can you tell me more about what excites you about QA? Your when your grandma or grandpa asks, like, hey, Jeremiah, what do you do and why do you love your job? Can you tell me, what would be the answer?
So I think my answer would be we make software. I make software better. I try to make software better. I think there's so many experiences that I've had with broken software, with bad software, and often there's just the excuses, oh, we didn't have time, or we didn't know, or we didn't have that user feedback, and you know, communicating is so important to what we do as QAs and being able to describe why this is an issue, why this is something that should be fixed. And when it is fixed, it's that feeling of validation, that feeling of, hey, look, I actually contributed without writing a line of code. I contributed because I was able to express why something could be better. And people agree. And people went, yeah, you know what? This does make a better product. We now have a larger footprint of our product because of that feedback, because we have quality products. I think about even material items like a backpack. When you buy, from a Target, a cheap backpack that falls apart, or you buy like a really fancy Patagonia backpack that lasts for 10 years, I think of software the same way. You can quickly pump out applications that are fragile, that have problems, user interface issues, or issues that just were never anticipated. But if you really have the quality framework behind it, and you have people able to communicate the importance of quality, it makes a more enduring, a more lasting product, and more widely accepted.
Very good, very good. Thank you.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Could you describe your managerial style?
Sure. I strive to be really like a servant leader, a coach. I tend to think of having to manage people as a situation where we have to manage them up or out. And it's not a fun part of the job. I think it is a lot more fun to deal with people in the sense of how can I be better than I am today, or tomorrow, than I am today, and asking questions like, what interests you about your job? Is there a particular project that you want to be on versus the project you're on now? How can we really grow you as an individual, not just for this company or where you're at, but for ongoing, for forevermore? Like, do you have the autonomy to do your job? If you're a senior level QA, do we just have to have our one-on-ones every week for 30 minutes or every other week? And is that enough for you? Do you understand what goals that you have? And what are we doing in your day-to-day job to help you attain those goals? Are you learning? Because I think learning is always something that's very important. And lastly, I would say purpose, making sure that folks on my team understand, like, if we're working on mortgage software, it's putting people in homes, and that's a pretty big purpose to have, because it's usually the largest purchase that they'll have in their lifetime. Or if you're working on a car selling or a program for selling cars, car purchases are just as big. So, do you understand the value that QA adds to those types of software applications? So, I would say the three pillars are really learning, purpose, and autonomy. And if you're a junior QA, do you have the tools and understanding of what the expectations are? You may need a little more rigor around how to write a bug or how to write a test case. It doesn't mean you don't have autonomy. It means that you maybe need a little more coaching in around the fundamentals.
That's a great answer. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. So since you talked about coaching, and you mentioned that probably half of your career you were in management. So how do you manage a low performer?
So this is something that happens, right? I mean, people get unmotivated at work. They don't understand why they're coming in day to day and putting in the hours. And so needling that out of someone requires to build that trust with them, and understanding where they're at in their life. And if they're a low performer because their kids are at home with them and they're working off their kitchen table, having some empathy with that and understanding that, hey, if you need odd hours to do your job, that's fine. We can make that happen. Or if what you're working on today doesn't excite you, what other projects in our portfolio do? Often we're working on several different things where I'm at, and I think that QAs typically have large portfolios of projects, right? So swapping people out into different roles and showing them that there's other stuff that they can be learning. I think it kind of goes back to my coaching style. There's usually something that they want to be learning that they're not, or something that they don't understand the purpose, like why am I here? And so having that conversation of like, do you own a home? Do you know what that's like? Do you know the process of that? And or they don't have the autonomy. They don't feel like they're empowered to do the job that they really think they should be doing. And so saying, here, you're running this project now. If that's what gets you excited about work, not having um, you know somebody manage you day to day and be over your shoulder for everything you do. We'll have our check-ins, and I'll hold you accountable at the end of the day to the work. But I want people to be excited about the work that they're doing.
Very nice.
So, could you tell us about a situation where you had to manage competing priorities in projects, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, no, it seems like there's never a day that goes by that we don't have competing priorities. Again, with a portfolio of projects, you really have to know your business. You have to know who in the business is a squeaky wheel, and who in the business, or what you're doing in the business, is really going to just produce more money and is where the important pieces are. And so, I typically meet with our product owners once a month just to get feedback from them, how my team is doing, what are the important things on the roadmap for them, and then looking at what those priorities are, and in any given time being able to speak to my team at like, hey, this is what the most important thing is, and here's why it's the most important thing. I think the why is always very important to that, because people don't want to feel like just because they're not on the most important thing that their work isn't important. Right. And so there's still 2, 3, 4 that are as important, but maybe aren't the biggest revenue maker, or aren't a new initiative going on that has visibility with many of the other C-level people. I think as a manager, you need to be in tune with your team, but you also need to be in tune with the business and understand that the business is going to have needs. And if you don't know what those needs are, you need to find out. And you need to work with people across the organization to know what that is. So if you're not knocking on doors and going, hey, product owner of this area, what are you working on this month or this quarter? And doing that on a regular cadence, you're not going to be able to make those decisions as to what is important and what isn't important.
Got it. That's good.
Okay, so maybe the last question that I have. So let's say you get the position in a new organization, and what would make you leave? What is it one thing, or two most important things that drives you to stay and make an impact in the organization?
Yeah, to use a probably overused work quote, eat my own dog food. If I don't have autonomy to do what I want to do, just like I give my team the autonomy, and then be held accountable to it, or if I am not learning new things, or if I'm not given an opportunity to learn new things, if I go to my leadership and say, hey, here's new software that really is going to change the way we do our job, will increase performance and productivity, but I need to go learn it, and that's going to take a few hours every day, and they say no, well, that's a big downer for me. I always want to be learning. I always think learning is a great way to expand our knowledge and improve our products and improve what we do as QA. And if I don't know my purpose, like if I'm just there to be a ticket pusher, to make sure that QA has sign off on things, and not actually increasing the quality of our products, those are the things that I kind of expect from my folks, that they understand their purpose, that they're learning, that they have autonomy, and I would kind of expect the same thing from any organization. Hold me accountable. If I'm going to spend a week, or go to a conference, or spend a week in a boot camp, I need to come back and actually show how that's going to add value to our company or our organization. If I can't in 10 words or less tell you what our company does and why quality is an important purpose to that end, then that's going to be, something that is a rub for me. Like, how are we actually helping people? Are we entertaining them? Are we providing them value? What are those things?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. Guys, let's go with the feedback. Niranjani, you want to start this time?
Sure. So, Jeremiah, I loved all your answers. You definitely came across as a strong leader. Um, you gave a very good introduction. You touched upon all the important areas of your experience, and you gave us very specific answers, especially to the challenging project. Um, it felt like I got a good understanding of why the project was challenging, so that was really helpful. And when it came to the competing priorities, again, if I have to be very nitpicky, I would have appreciated a little more specific example there. I think you definitely gave us all the right answers, but I would have also looked for something more specific. Like, for example, you ran into a situation where you had a release where there were uh, 10 different P0s that came up. And so you had to push back on the release rather than having your team sit and test it out all night just because the release was supposed to happen that day. So I think that kind of pushback, that example would have made you. Uh, Given you a good way, I mean, the way you stated, hey, these are things I do, versus that example would have been a perfect way to portray yourself as a strong leader. But other than that, yeah, I just loved all your answers.
No, great feedback. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I could have definitely had a specific instance to speak to. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I totally agree with Niranjani. I think what really came through that you were very well prepared, so you didn't really stumble on any questions, and you went with the answers and spoke from the heart and your experience. I think that really shows, that you a very passionate leader and you are a great manager. What really, I think any organization would love to have you as a leader, because I think the values that you instill to your team and the values that you set for yourself, it just really shows what a great leader you are. So I think that really, sort of managerial style question that you answered with the examples. How do you lead a low performer? I think not just going into the quick sort of example. Hey, I put a plan in, and if it doesn't work, we pip the person. Sure, in the reality, that's how it works. But I think there's just much more work that goes into understanding and building those relationships. What it sounds like, you build the personal relationships with the team, and I think that's what really shows human side of the manager, not just what we saw in the previous bad interview section, where it's just like, hey, it's about me, it's about what I do, and I don't really care who you are. So I think that really again creates a lot of value, not just for you but for the entire organization, and shows that you really care for the people.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a lot of those things end up as a pip, but that's like, in my mind, the last step. Like, until you just the person's given up on it, and as a manager, I can't allow the company to continue supporting this person. I want to help them then find another role that does engage them, and ultimately, the performance improvement plan is the last step there, and until you really understand what's going on and making those connections, because that's a harder job. It's a harder job to have to pip someone you care for, versus just not caring, and
Yeah.
you know they're gone in 30 days. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I like to continue to maintain relationships with the folks I work with well
Yeah.
beyond the job.
Yeah, and what I really appreciated your introduction when you talked about yourself. I think it really shows again the preparedness, not just reading your resume. That what a lot of people do the mistake, because everyone can read the resume and sort of got an idea who you really are. But I think going beyond and understanding, how did you come about to be in this field? What do you like about it? What are you passionate about? I think that shows you who, as a not only as a leader but as a human, are, and what is organization gonna um, well, not buy, but what are they getting into relationship with? I think that's it's
Yeah.
a long term relationship, right? you're not getting married,
It
but
is.
it is a long-term relationship.
From this conversation, I have one more question. Um, how do you guys, and this question actually to all of you, because this is situation that I saw many times pretty much in almost all companies. Obviously, hiring managers, I mean QA managers or team lead, they dealing with engineering team, right? And especially like if you're dealing with QA automation engineers, some of them they may be actually smarter than you, and in some domains, right? I saw when a lead QA, he wasn't an subject matter expert in the test automation. He was leading the manual QAs, but for somehow or for some reason, he started doing the managing of QA automation engineers, and there was a lot of conflict. Uh, what do you think, guys? Like how thoughtful leaders should dealing with people who may be uh, more knowledgeable in some certain domains, right? How do you distribute the work and how do you manage that? What do you think?
Uh, I'll just give a quick answer from my sort of experience. I think, let's look at the president. President is not an expert in every field. That's why he has advisors for, right? So I think that's what should be the leadership style. The leader should know what exactly the vision is for the organization, for the department, but they have to have an expert in that field to lead them. So you don't necessarily have to know every single thing, but you have to have somebody who knows all the automation, all the nuances, all the technology in order to lead. So I think if we're strictly looking from the managerial perspective, sure, if you're managing people, you need to know. You have to be a subject matter expert in that field because otherwise, as you said, you will lose the respect for the people you're leading.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. For me, it's definitely acknowledging it. Publicly, privately, telling people like, "Hey, this is my expert in automation." That they're the ones in the trenches doing the work, not me. And then showing it and deferring to them when there's questions about, should we automate this or should we not automate this, or which framework are we going to implement, or how are we going to do this, and having those conversations openly with the team so folks can see that you're empowering them because they are the subject matter expert. And they're still, I think that's partly what also makes good teams, right? So if you have a diverse skill sets in your individuals, you have people that know certain domains very well. And automation is certainly part of that, and engineering frameworks is part of that, or so is APIs, and so is manual testing. So I think a good team can bring all those together and have those conversations and challenge each other in an open way. And then as a leader, acknowledging that yes, you are that person, and I need you to be that person because I'm not.
Yeah, to add to what both of them said, I think apart from visibility, um, they could be a subject matter expert in one domain, but then I would also focus on giving them opportunities to grow. There may be areas where they may not be a subject matter expert, and sometimes when you have a senior person on the team, I've had experience doing that where they tend to shy away from areas that they're not familiar with, and I'd be like, yeah, let's use that as an opportunity to grow because you could be a subject matter expert in one area, but I think there's also always room for growth. And that way, they get to also learn something apart from what they already know.
Awesome. Yep, very thoughtful. Another question that I would also like to know, how do you guys deal with firing and hiring people? We didn't cover that during the interview, but I think this kind of question also you may ask, or you may be faced with this question. So, what do you guys think?
I mean, firing is probably the last option or something that I wouldn't consider unless I've exhausted all my options. Before even going through a PIP, I would have enough data around, what is working or what they're good at and what they're not good at, and then try to map it to like a career ladder that we have and figure out what are the gaps, and then I would give them specific examples to make sure they understand why I feel that they are not meeting expectations. And then talk to them about, there are two options. Like either we could go through a PIP and it is going to be a little stressful, but, either you could choose to do that or, you could let me know. Sometimes people don't want to go through a PIP. They want to make a decision and quit. That's up to them, but I want to give them that opportunity to think about it, and then I would have to involve HR, go through the PIP, and then again, I would want to call out specific outcomes from the PIP. Like, what are we looking for? Are we looking for improvements in these areas, like one, two, three? Or are we going to just go back and say, if it's about overall performance versus, growth in specific areas, like we want to call it out because otherwise it's not clear. And at the end of the day, they don't have a great experience. You as a manager are not happy with the way things went. So I would like to call it out and then, make a decision after the PIP.
Yeah, I think in the giving the specifics, I usually want to time box that and say, here's what I expect from this role, from this job description, from your day-to-day work, and I need to see a change in how that's being executed in 30 days, in a week, whatever that framework is for the changes that we need to see in a low performer. I think those situations are harder to manage when firing someone. I've had the unfortunate experience of having to fire someone on the spot just for behavioral reasons, for talking down to people and not treating people with respect that we need to just treat each other with on a general basis, just as individuals and human beings. And so, I think that was very unfortunate. I think it was an unfortunate hire to begin with. But then when I heard some of the things that they were saying about women or people of the opposite sex, they were talking about women in a way that was just not going to happen for an employee that reported directly to me. And my boss gave me, carte blanche to do that based on the feedback that I'd given and then based on what the employees had said about this individual. And so also unfortunate, but the difference I think was pulling off a Band-Aid fast or pulling it off slow. I don't think that was behavior that could be corrected with a PIP. But I think Niranjani nailed it for as far as setting up specifics, 1, 2, 3, contacting HR, adding a time box to that, and then going through that. And I think, yeah, people do. I've had that happen too, where we can do the PIP, or we can help you find a better place for you than where we are right now.
Kristina, what do you think?
Well, I think they just sort of both nailed it. It's exactly to the point. I don't think there's much to add to, because I think, at one side you wanna there's certain offensive behaviors where you wanna immediately address, and then there's sometimes longer term relationship that you wanna show the employee how to succeed in their role. And then sometimes, there's situations where people don't really, they what my colleague says, they fire themselves, right? They lose their interest. They just no longer feel the passion or show any interest in no matter which path you sort of show them. So I think in those sort of cases where you try to push them as much as you can, and you don't see improvement. I've had the case where, we went through the PIP and we showed the person went off the PIP maybe just because it was, a very stressful situation, they did complete all the tasks that we're supposed to complete and all the goals, but then 6 months down the road, we went to the same rabbit hole. And at that point, we just decided not to go through it again because we knew it was probably going to be the same outcome. So sure, there is a path to improve, but then if people go back into the bad habits, there's not much you can do about it.
Awesome. And guys, the last question, would be, I usually ask this during our meetups in our live meetups. During the hiring process, what is the most important thing that you are looking into the candidates who you are interviewing for QA engineering positions? Like, what are the most things you are looking into, and what are the red flags, which is for you like red flag, no go? Niranjani, let's start.
Yeah, sure. So while hiring engineers, I'm definitely looking for someone who has breadth and depth of knowledge. Like they need not necessarily be a subject matter expert in one area, but at least they should be able to test both on the UI and API, and should be able to debug issues, troubleshooting, and should be independent, especially if it's going to be a senior QA engineer. And also should have some experience in automation. If not, like I don't care about how many tools they've used. At the end of the day, if they have strong programming skills, I think they can learn any programming language or any tool if needed. So it's about just the attitude and the right mindset while hiring the person.
And I think Niranjani named it, attitude. I think skills can be learned. If they're already a strong programmer in one language, I think picking up another one, if it's not too far away from or too derivative, I think Niranjani nailed it. If they are a senior, yeah, they got to be able to work independently, but they also have to be able to collaborate. They need to be able to collect information from product owners and engineers. Where do they fit into the team, and how do they work with the team, as well as getting their work done. So I think attitude is and fit, as ambiguous as fit is, I think that's one of the things we look for when we have that conversation, because otherwise we could just read it all from the resume and know that they can do the
Right.
job.
What do you think?
I think I would have to probably agree the most with Jeremiah, because I think the number one, what I'm looking is enthusiasm and excitement. I want them to be excited about the job. I want and learners, willingness to learn, because again, I think you may not necessarily know all the tools, because just every job requires you a totally different set of skills, and it may require different tool knowledge, different experience. But I think those skills aren't the learned skills. You can just go and find out, as long as you are willing to learn and you enthusiastic about the job and passionate about it. And I think the other one is that's super important. I think the teamwork and the fit. I think the culture fit is super important, because no matter how good you are in technology, if you are not able to work with people, there's no room for you in our organization. I think that's really, no matter how brilliant you are, if you cannot work with people, we've seen it over and over again. It just creates more problem than actually has any sort of benefit to the team.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kristina and Jeremiah. It was very interesting. That
This
was
was fun.
that was
It was
It was
interesting.
fun.
It was a lot of
Yeah.
insights. Yeah, I hope I'll see you later in our future other podcasts and videos. But thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evgeny.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.